an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fleabag, Season 2, Episode 5. In this episode, nothing really important happens in this one. Nothing of note. Can't even really remember what happens. So it's probably going to be a pretty short episode, I guess. Just kidding, they had sex. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. Guys, I am going to try really hard to just tell this in order and not immediately jump to the end where they had sex, even though I would really like to do that, because of course I would. But we're gonna take it slow, baby. We're just gonna, see where it goes. So, this episode started off on a surprise because she is out on a date with the hot misogynist, as he is called in the captions. And I stand by it, guys. I do not find this guy attractive, personally. He just seems... He's got like a cherubic sort of face. His face is too much of a baby face. Maybe if he had a beard. I feel like he could pull off a beard really well. But that aside, I'm obviously in the minority here. He is not who I expected to see. The way the last episode ended, I just wasn't really sure how things were going to continue. And, we started off the season with a sort of montage of her trying to improve her behaviors and the way that she treats herself. And one of the ways that she did that was turning down sex with the hot asshole. Is that the name that he goes by? I'm trying to remember. But I kind of thought that meant she was turning down casual sex in general. I guess now that it means that she was avoiding that particular guy because he was a repeat pattern that wasn't healthy for her, which is also valid. But I just didn't think I would see her on a date because I didn't think that she was going to be trying to hook up. And that's the only reason to go out with somebody after the fight that she had just had with the priest. Let's be honest. It cuts to her at on this date. They're drinking and giggling to each other, and I immediately was like, "Oh, okay, so she just wants to fuck now." Which honestly, I don't know why it didn't occur to me. Guys, if you just went through what she went through, yeah, you want to fuck. Dadoy. I don't know, I just kind of thought that his rejection of her was going to throw such cold water over her that it would completely negate, But instead, I should have realized that this, awoken something. And she going out and just kind of looking for a dick, that makes total sense. And she is flirting with him and talking about the variety of ways in which he's actually pretty great, trying to sort of convince herself. I love when she says he's kind of controlling, but it's manageable. And he says, "Don't eat that." And she just says, "I'm going to," and eats it anyway. And then says he's a feminist, and he says, "I have a sister." Oh my God. I don't know why that got me so bad, but that was very good. And all of this is leading up to him asking if she wants to go back to his place and have sex. And he tells her, I'm really good at it. And she says he won't be. Twice. And then it immediately cuts to her getting railed, looking at the camera saying he's really good at it. And we find out later that he made her come 9 times. I really enjoy this because it's a common thing to assume if somebody talks a lot about how good they are in bed, that they are full of shit and not actually good. And that is mostly true. You know, when people just talk too much about it, silent waters run the deepest. You know, if you talk too much, it just doesn't, it feels like you're overcompensating. You're trying to trick people. And I kind of like that being upended a little bit. And this guy bragging on himself and also being really like super smooth, sexy lawyer man who's just like too charming. It would be very easy to make him be bad in bed because like that is what most of us would probably assume of a guy like this. But that it can be sort of surprising sometimes. And I've been on the other end of this too. I'm a pretty good judge of character. Mostly. Not perfect by any means. But I have definitely been with guys that I assessed from various like behaviors of theirs that they would be very good in bed. And then it turned out I was really, really wrong. And the reverse is also true. Thinking like, well, I'll sleep with this guy because like I may as well. He's really hot and I feel like it. But I'm not really expecting much. And then I'm like, what just happened? So I kind of liked that bit of surprise there because that's part of dating, man. So then we see her on her walk of shame the next day. She looks like hell. And she is meeting Claire at her dad's house. And Claire is carrying this massive arrangement. I'm guessing this is for the wedding. But the wedding isn't for a couple days. And I don't really, like, you don't go get an arrangement for a wedding that far in advance. Is it for the wedding? Am I misreading this, guys? Because they go bad pretty quickly. And actually, the one she's carrying looks like shit already. It's already beginning to, like, wilt and droop. It's not great. So I was just sort of confused. Like, the florist, if you have somebody doing your wedding, they do the arrangements the day before, put them in a cooler, and then they bring them to you day of, out of a like refrigerated truck usually, because that is how short a lifespan those sorts of arrangements normally have. I thought that there was something else going on here. It was almost, the arrangement that she's carrying is so sedate that I almost thought we were going to find out somebody had died. And when it's not even brought up and I have to assume it's for the wedding, I was confused. I don't know. But anyway, they come in and Claire is as they're waiting at the door for her father to answer, Claire is telling Fleabag that she has a really, really important appointment. And we don't know what it is. We find out later that it's a haircut, but she doesn't want to be late for it. I love how you find out that it's a haircut. Like, she's making such a big deal out of this, guys. It's very important. I can't miss it. It's very important. And then it's like, well, I mean, it was important, but like you're acting like the whole company's like future is dependent on it, you know? And she gets roped into staying despite the fact that she doesn't want to and tries to make her excuses. Their father is just not listening. So he leads them into the kitchen. And he says, oh, and our lovely friend has just dropped around. And they walk in, and Hot Priest is standing there looking very awkward because he didn't expect to see her there. And the reason that he is here is to tell them that he can't do the wedding. And it's such a moment because the two of them know what's going on and literally nobody else in the entire room has any idea. he says something about, like, I think his brother is ill. I don't even remember what excuse he gives. But it's something where Fleabag is watching her godmother and is like, she's going to absolutely flip shit. And she doesn't at that moment. She is... Oh my God, Gabriela says hit by a lorry. I forgot. Because he says ill, and then he says it involves a lorry. Or it's like he weirdly adds the lorry after he started the story on a different, like, on a different vibe. So it comes really out of nowhere. That's what he said about the lorry that hit him. But yeah, godmother manages to, like, hold it together just up until the point when he is out the door. And I mean, he's barely out the door, likely standing on the steps still when she screams at the top of her lungs, "What a cunt." And she completely loses her mind. As Fleabag had predicted, she just manages to keep it together for long enough within the scene that it seems like she's being polite. Fleabag was also somewhat impressed, I think, about how she was managing to put on a good show. But yeah, I do enjoy that she's telling him, don't even think about it. You really must go. And she rushes him out the door in what looks like a moment of trying to be compassionate and get him on his way to deal with his responsibilities ASAP. But really, it's because she is about to pop and she needs him to get out of there before she can, you know? I need to paint. I need to paint now. Send them away. Oh my God, she is the worst. So, yeah, they take off. And we go to the bus stop where Fleabag is sitting with her head in her hands because she thinks that she is going to keel over and die. And he comes and sits next to her and startles the hell out of her. And he tells her basically that he just couldn't do it. And she starts to say, I just want to say, and he interrupts with, I know what you're going to say. And she says, no, I don't think you do, actually. And he just gazes at her for a minute and then finally says, please don't come to the church again. And I mean that with the greatest of compliments, which is such a beautiful pair of lines. And he delivers it so well. It just feels very, very sincere. He's like, I don't even want to be saying these words to you. I would actually very much like for you to come to the church right now. And I would like to fuck you there. But I have to tell you not to, because it's the right thing to do, and I hate it. I am saying it. There it is. And, anybody who has been in a situation where they are into somebody that they shouldn't be for various reasons, it could be a myriad of things, you know what this is like. Doing the right thing can be so difficult. And he gets up and leaves, and she goes back to the cafe, and it's Chatty Wednesday, and she is getting very irritated with everybody and really about to lose her mind. And finally, she gets, I hope she's talking to Joe and he zips his lips. She gets interrupted by the bank guy who shows up. And I love when she says, you look like something bad has happened. And he says, do I? I thought I was looking jolly. I don't know why that cracked me up so bad. I think that it might be because I can sort of relate to not knowing what expression I have on my face sometimes, because I have a really expressive face. And oftentimes when I'm around people I don't know super well, I try hard to control it because I can just tell you a whole sentence with my expression. But sometimes when I am not on my guard or I don't know I'm being observed, this happens with Owen a lot. I'll just be thinking really hard about something, trying to solve a problem in my head of some kind, or he'll have said something to me that like, I almost remember something to say in return. Like I'm trying to remember somebody's name, or I'm trying to remember a quote, and he'll be like, "Are you okay? You look really mad. What is going on?" And I have no idea that I just look infuriated. And apparently that's the vibe I give off when my face is at rest. Resting bitch face, but like bitch face makes you look more, I feel like the implication is irritation. And evidently my resting face is like cold fury, you know? And I don't know what that's about, but there it is. So yeah, I thought that line was so funny. So he tells her, "I've been offered a new job and I wanted to say goodbye." So he says, "I wanted to give you this." And he hands her a hamster, but he tells her it's a guinea pig. And this is one of those that I definitely have gotten them confused with one another. We've got hamsters, we've got guinea pigs. I feel like there's another one in that family that I'm thinking of. Little like a rodent that's like the size of a baseball or so. But I can't remember. But yeah, I get them confused so much. Guinea pigs are the ones that look like they have 80s hair. Like there's something about the way their fur grows that looks like it's feathered, you know, like feathered bangs. So that's what I try and keep in mind, is that the guinea pigs are the ones that look like they're in a hairband. And hamsters look a lot more like mice, like giant mice, really. So in the midst of this conversation, she gets a call from her sister, who is absolutely flipping out. Something has happened. I can't breathe. And "Where are you? Do you need me to come?" "No, I fucked it up. I fucked everything up. Can you come?" So she leaves this man in charge of the cafe temporarily. And by temporarily, I mean the rest of the entire day. And I just loved this. The fact that he does this, and he winds up later on. I noticed that he was holding onto the apron as he walked away, and I was like, "Oh, are they just..." And she does address it. She's like, "Oh, he kept the penny. Okay, that was weird." But yes, so she goes to see Claire in the park, and Claire has gotten this haircut. So here's the thing about the haircut. I feel like Claire could pull it off. It's bad, like it is, but sometimes bad is bad enough to turn the corner and come back around and be good again, actually. And I think it looks bad because it's not really like styled well. It sort of just sticks out on one side very badly. And also, I think she needs the makeup, because Claire is barefaced in this scene, or is like close to barefaced as she gets. And we don't really see Claire wear makeup that often, but when you have this sort of cut and you're wearing the outfit that she's wearing, I feel like heavy eye makeup or a really bold lip plus some long earrings are really the way to go. And this is just speaking from my experience when I essentially shaved my head. I had really short hair, and I would often wear like deep lipstick with it and just sort of punch it up a little bit. And so when you first see it, I mean, don't get me wrong, it really is not good. But I didn't see it as completely unsalvageable, despite the fact that it's unsalvageable, or that she thinks it's unsalvageable. Fleabag does try to talk her sister around. It's modern, it's chic, and eventually she says, "Claire, it's French." And I love that, because there was a previous episode where she said something like, chic is just French for ugly. Something like that. If you guys remember what the exact quote is, go ahead and hit me with it in the chat. But I don't think that her sister is aware that she holds that opinion. So her saying it's French does work and calms Claire down significantly there. And she's just, really? I look like a pencil. She's... Oh, God. So she's freaking out, and Fleabag says something like, have you been drinking? And she says, he gave me champagne first. That's how they get you. That's what he did before he ruined my life. And that tips Fleabag off. And she says, did you go to Anthony? And Claire gives her a really guilty look. And she says, Claire, you remember what happened to me. And we see this scene of this man cutting her hair, obviously very distracted, and chopping it off shorter and shorter, and her having to scream at him before he takes another 6 inches off of her head. Guys, this is very triggering for me. I have very curly hair, and unfortunately, because of not even just patriarchy, because of white supremacist beauty standards, a lot of hairstylists don't know how to cope with curly hair. And I would like to say that even despite that, I'm in a better position than black women, because there are salons where a black woman would walk in and they will just tell her, sorry, we can't do your hair. Because a black woman's hair is not, from all of the different, there are, for those who don't know this, there are different categories of curly. And so you could have 3C or 4C hair, and depending on the number, it's going to be more coarse and have a much tighter curl, which can result in either spiral ringlets or an afro. And if you've got ringlets, sometimes they'll be more willing to work with you. But if you've got more coarse hair, a lot of people haven't even been trained on how to handle black hair. So I am telling my story with the full acknowledgement that I still have it better. But it's really wild to me that my hair texture is not... It's... In my opinion, not such a mystery. And yet there are people whose job it is to deal with hair all day, who seem completely flummoxed by it. No idea what to make of it. And I really don't know what to do with that. So I have been to a couple of salons where the amount of hair they took off, because they don't understand shrinkage. If you have long, curly hair and you get it wet, it looks so long. So when you say you want it to be a few inches shorter, they aren't thinking about what that's like for curly, and they take off 4 inches wet, which equals 7 inches curly. When your hair curls from being combed straight while it's wet, it shrinks a lot. And my shrinkage, again, if you have much tighter, kinkier curls, I think 4C, I think the higher the number, the tighter the curl pattern. Your shrinkage is bonkers. If you guys have not checked that out, there are a lot of black women who will show a picture of them holding their hair straight out from their head with their fingers, like they're pulling it. And it looks to be about a foot long. And then they release it and it's only sticking out from their head by 4 inches. That shrinkage dwarfs mine. But it still happens. And the number of bad haircuts I've gotten, or bad color jobs that I have gotten, where I haven't stopped them because I trusted that they were the professional and knew what they were doing. Guys, I have nightmares still sometimes about that. And I'm not exaggerating. Literal nightmares about, again, being in like the chair with the person who fucked me up so bad that time. And it's so enraging because, like I said, I kept hoping that because they were the professional, they fucking knew. And it wasn't until I began to understand like white beauty standards that I realized what was happening, because I thought I was just going to people who were bad at their job. And I was. But you know how that is? You just wonder, like, is my hair really that difficult? Is my hair really such a complete mystery? And no, it's not. It's just that because you're not the standard, you're not taught in beauty school. That's just the thing. And there has been a bit of a movement recently to get beauty schools, because you have to have a license to cut hair, to force them to teach dealing with curly hair and black hair. Which, honestly, it's 2021, and the fact that that isn't standard is shocking. You know, it really is. But anyway, I was watching this, and you guys, it's just so, I am really bad when I'm getting a service. I am really bad at telling them that I am not happy with the job they're doing, because I don't want to make angry the person who sort of is holding my life in their hands. But it's not like I've ever kept my mouth shut and been relieved that I've kept my mouth shut. That like has never happened. So I don't know why I don't learn my lesson. All I do is keep my mouth shut because I don't want to upset someone, and then go into my car and cry. And this has happened with haircuts. This has happened with really bad and sometimes painful manicures. And I had this even happen when I splurged to get my house cleaned a couple of years ago, and I paid these people to do a deep clean, and they didn't do it. And I posted on Facebook with photos of the many areas in the house that they completely missed that were really bad. And recently I decided that I wanted to try again, but I wasn't sure where to go. And Owen was like, I know a girl who I used to know personally who has a service if you want to check her out. And he sent me the Facebook link. And I got in touch via Messenger and was like asking about pricing and when she could come. And I told her the truth. I said, look, I have a problem when it comes to services with getting screwed over because I don't actually like stop them or tell them what I want. And I sent her the link to the Facebook post. And I was like, this is what I ran into last time. As you can see from the photos, they truly did not do the job. And yet, I was so anxious over holding them responsible. And they eventually came back to fix the job. But I was so anxious and I felt so guilty that I couldn't be home when they came. And I told Owen to handle them. And I was like, I just need you to know that this, like me taking this risk and spending the money again, I am more than willing to do it. But please actually do what you say. And I like sent this all because I was so anxious about it. And afterwards I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I just overshared the way that I do sometimes. And I didn't hear from her for like 4 days. Because we had been going back and forth pretty consistently. And then finally, when I didn't hear from her, I sent another message and said, I fear I've said too much. And I got a response like 10 minutes later. It was like, I'm so sorry. No, you haven't said too much. LOL. I've been hospitalized. Oh my God, you guys. She was like, I will be getting back to people. There's a lot of messages in my inbox. I apologize for the delay. And I was like, you don't need to apologize. Don't be like me. And I sent her the John Mulaney gif where he says, you could probably spill soup in my lap and I would apologize to you. Because that's definitely my energy in that sort of respect. And she was laughing and was like, yeah, I completely sympathize with that. She has not come yet to clean. She is still in the hospital, as far as I know. But I will keep you all posted on how that's going. So anyway, this whole thing with the fucking haircut, guys, it's just very triggering. It's so hard. I want to do stuff from like as a treat for myself, you know, and it just goes wrong so often. I got a massage a few weeks ago and I went up with bruises up and down my arms because they were going so hard. And I did actually tell them to like lighten up and they didn't listen to me. So it's just, it can be hard to advocate for yourself, especially when you've been in that kind of job and you know how unreasonable some people can be and you don't want to come across like that. But the truth is you're not being unreasonable. You know, I appreciated so much seeing Fleabag snap at him to get him to fucking stop as he's about to cut her hair to like a 2-inch length in front, you know? So anyway, at this point, Claire, like, Fleabag, I love this moment. She sort of decides that she's going to stand up for Claire here as a means of standing up for herself, right? And this is such a classic thing. I can do this. I can stand up for a friend who's gotten bad service, but I can't do it for myself. It's just one of those things. So she gets up and she fucking heads over to the salon and she busts in there with Claire and yells at Anthony. That is exactly what she asked for. And I love this. Claire's trying to stand by her. I didn't ask for this thing. And he says, it's not that big a deal. Hair isn't everything. I love this moment because everybody in the salon turns and looks at him. And Fleabag just says, wow, hair is everything. We wish it wasn't. We wish it was about something else occasionally. But it is. It's the difference between a good day and a bad day. We're meant to think that it's a symbol of power. That it's a symbol of fertility. Some people are exploited for it, and it pays your fucking bills. Hair is everything, Anthony. And at this point, Claire pipes in and says, show her the reference. Claire. You could have just not, Claire. You know? You could have just not said anything. And you probably could have gotten away with it. But she has to pipe up. And he says, Claudia, bring me the bin. And this girl comes over with it. It's all crumpled up in the garbage. And he pulls it out and holds it up. And it's the exact haircut. And I love Fleabag turns and looks at Claire. And he says, if you want to change your life, change your life. It's not going to happen in here. And they both apologize. And leave. I'll see you next week. She says, I'll see you next week. Oh my God. Guys, the whole thing with hair too. Yeah, hair is everything. It's a huge deal. It's one of the most, it's one of the last bastions of real policing that happens even in workplaces and stuff regarding what your body looks like, you know? Like, Black women especially are subject to being forced to straighten and chemically treat their hair to make it look whiter in order for them to be perceived as professional. And it's just bonkers. Like, there's so many stories out there that you can read about kids who had dreads and they were like kept from walking down the aisle at graduation to get their diploma because they had dreads. That kind of thing, where it's just, yeah, it's, listen, Anthony, I get what you're trying to say, but yeah, don't stand in your hair salon with your scissors in your hand and talk about how hair is and everything. Okay. Like, just don't do it. So they do their walk of shame out of there. They go back to sit on a park bench again. And I appreciate Claire asks Fleabag if she has a cigarette. Fleabag says no, and Claire says good. That's a good moment. And then she thanks her for being there for her at the hospital and seeing her through that whole thing. And eventually admits that she felt relief at the miscarriage. She realizes she doesn't want her husband's baby and feels awful about it. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that really throws into sharp relief whether or not you want to be with somebody and whether or not you're happy in your current situation, is like moments like a child, you know, that's something that you can't undo or take back, having the child, not the pregnancy. And it, you know, this was a bit of a moment for me. I was pregnant the first time that I got engaged. He got me pregnant. And that was really the moment that we both stepped back and sort of began to realize that we didn't want the relationship the way we thought. We had been engaged for a little while by the time I got pregnant. And it was sort of like we were just on the track to get married already. And so we were just going to go through with it because we were just, you get into this place where it feels like you may as well, you know, and you forget the passion that should be coming with that you really want to be with this person. And it's a hard thing to break an engagement, to tell somebody like, I told you that I was so in love with you that I literally wanted to marry you. And now I have to tell you that I don't want that. And in fact, think we should break up. And getting pregnant was the moment for both of us where we stopped and sort of were like, oh. And he didn't want to have a kid in general, but there was a real sense of it, like that he didn't want to have a kid with me particularly. And I got that vibe off of him. He didn't say it, but there was a feeling of finality to the pregnancy that was clearly making him really like anxious. And I began to think, like, if I'm with somebody who isn't willing to be tied to me in a physical way, like you would with a child, where you both have to care for and raise it, then why am I going to marry them if they aren't prepared to be by my side in that way already anyway, you know? And it's not that simple. You know, I'm getting married, but I don't want kids. It's not like those things can't be separate. But it was just this sort of panic that he seemed to be experiencing at the idea that, to me, was much more about us and told a bigger story. So, yeah, at this point she says, you know what, I haven't even asked you how you are. What's going on with you? And Fleabag tells her, I met someone. And Claire asks, that's amazing. What does he do? And she says, he's a priest. And Claire... I'm sorry. I'm just watching it right now on the screen. Claire sort of crumples and holds her head in her hand and then finally straightens up and looks at her and says, is it? And Fleabag goes, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You are joking. No. And then she starts laughing hysterically. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's very, very complicated. And then says, you're a genius. You're my fucking hero. So, oh, I love her reaction. It's so good. It made me so happy. I wasn't sure what she'd say, but that was great. So, she's still reeling from this. Here comes her boss, colleague, I don't know what you want to call him, Claire. The guy that she's clearly into. And he genuinely loves her hair. He's like so sincere. It's so cute. And he asks her, he's heading over to some like music thing with some other people. It's such a great moment, you guys, because you can see his genuine admiration for her hair lift Claire's spirits immediately. Like there's just this complete shift in her whole demeanor when she realizes that he means it, And he invites her to this thing. She says she can't go because she has to bring Jake his bassoon. And Fleabag, thank God, steps in and is like, no, I'll bring it. And she says, just tell him that it's with me at the cafe. So, at this point, Claire goes off with Claire. That will never not be funny, I swear to God. I was so excited. I really was. And Fleabag looks at her watch, realizes how long she's left the bank guy in charge of the cafe, and goes sprinting back to meet him. And he says goodbye to her, takes the apron with him, and also lets her know that there is a person inside who says they know her, and so she let him wait in there. Or he let him wait in there. So she goes in, and it's Martin. This scene is a wild ride, you guys. It's one of those where I'm like, so he's got his shit-eating grin that he always has. Making is that a bassoon in your hand, or are you just happy to see me? But it turns a corner pretty abruptly. He wants to know where Claire is, and she tells him she doesn't know. He not only does he not believe her, but later she gets a text and he demands to see her phone. And she just laughs in his face, literally laughs. And it's like, no, you can't see my phone. And she was meant to drop that off and she's not at the office. So you just found that, huh? And as he says that, she is watching him because he's petting Hillary. And she says, please don't hurt the guinea pig. And I love this moment, you guys, because he's such a scumbag. But everybody has a similar line that they don't want to cross with animals. And when she says, don't hurt the guinea pig, he is so offended that she would ever think that he would do anything to this guinea pig. I just found this so funny. He just looks at her. I would never hurt the guinea pig. I wouldn't do that. His whole demeanor just shifts and he immediately goes to put her back in the cage, to prove it. It's so funny. I love the way she turns and looks at the camera what the fuck? So, yeah. And then she says, should you be here? Aren't you supposed to be getting me arrested or something? And he gets really mad that Claire told her about that, which I forgot that wasn't really supposed to be known. But I guess probably she shouldn't have blurted it out to him that she knows. Although maybe if she tells him, he'll be less likely to do it. So he sits on one of the tables and tells her that she's the problem with his perfect, awful life, as he pulls a bottle out of his pocket and drinks and complains about how Claire runs off into the night for her. I can't even get the woman pregnant. And then you come in showing off about your miscarriage like you didn't even want the one you had. I was just trying to make her feel better. And he's like yells this at her. I was just trying to make her feel better. What? Okay, weird. This is when her phone vibrates and he tries to demand to see her phone. And finally, he gets in her face and says that he will fuck her. And she better start sleeping with a lawyer. And when she says she's already sleeping with a lawyer, he turns around and yells, "Yeah, well, lucky lawyer," without really thinking about it, and seems to realize too late that that wasn't actually a retort. It was actually kind of a compliment, and looks really embarrassed and rushes out. And before that, obviously, I can't believe I skipped this. He straight up asks, "Is she leaving me?" And he starts to get genuinely emotional. "Don't let her leave me. Don't let her leave me. Please." This is one of those where I'm just so confused about people sometimes. What is he in it for? Because he doesn't seem to like Claire that much. Is it just like, and is he living off her money? Is that really more of it? Is he just terrified of change? Like, this is always where I land with people who are like afraid somebody is going to abandon them when they don't seem invested in the first place. I don't understand the fear and what it's rooted in at all. And I just don't get it with him. Like, it's not to say that the writing is off, because this is a genuine human thing. People who cling to something that they don't even enjoy. And it's puzzling as fuck. It's always been weird. But this moment of him just like, "Don't let her leave me." And I'm like, I don't get what you are even getting out of the relationship, dude. And Fleabag gives him a big smile and says, "I hope she doesn't come home tonight." And he starts laughing and then grabs the edge of her like sweater, her cashmere sweater, and tries to yank her. Ugh. So anyway, that's that conversation, and he leaves, and I hope to God that the next episode is Claire fucking leaving him. So then we hop ahead a few hours, and Fleabag is standing in front of her door. She's inside, wearing a trench coat. Obviously, she has lingerie underneath it. It's obvious, like we just, we know. And she is expecting the hot misogynist. And there's a knock on the door, and she opens it fully expecting it's him. And it is the hot priest. And when he showed up, I was like, is this it? I thought maybe he was coming to tell her that he actually was willing to risk it all for her. He does wind up risking it all for her. But he came here to tell her the opposite. His intention was to be like, "Here's the thing. I really can't." Now, I say that was his intention. But there's a big asterisk after that. Because I think, call me crazy, anytime you are extremely attracted to a person physically, and you find yourself in a situation where you are alone and in private, and you orchestrated that situation, which he did. He showed up at her house. You are secretly hoping something might happen. Like, he says that he came to tell her that he can't. But I don't really buy it. I think that was what he told himself. But really, he was like, and I'll go to her house. And there was a tiny voice in the way back of his head that was like, there's a bed at her house. Did you know that? There's walls. People can't see you. You could just, nobody would know. That's what I think was going on, really. So he's trying to talk to her about how he can't get physical with her. And first he tells her he's going to actually carry out the wedding because he just can't do that to them. And she appreciates that. But then, yeah. I've sacrificed a lot for this life. I've given a lot of things up. And they get interrupted by the doorbell, which she attempts to just ignore. And finally, he keeps pushing it. She goes to the door. And the only way to get him to leave her alone is to tell him that he is the best sex she ever had. And that he made her come 9 times. And I love this, that he was so pushy about coming inside, asking if he did something wrong. But as soon as she tells him that, and then tells him to go away, he's like completely okay with walking away. It's just the fact that it seems like she wasn't impressed with him, or that he fucked up somehow. He's like clinging, like, well, I can make up for it. I can fix that. But once she's like, no, you fucked real good. That's not the problem. He's like, oh, all right. Well, as long as I fucked good, then I guess we're fine. And she turns around, comes back in. And when the priest says 9 times, she's just like, I just needed to get him to go away. And I'm going to get to this in a second, the whole thing that I enjoy about this scene specifically. But yeah, this is when he says, I can't be physical with you. And she says, she makes a joke about wrestling and then says, priests have sex. A lot of them do, actually. And you won't burst into flames. I Googled it. And he says, I can't have sex with you because I'll fall in love with you. And if I fall in love with you, I won't burst into flames, but my life will be fucked. And she turns the camera and says, we're going to have sex. And he says, I'm supposed to love one thing. And she says again, oh my God, we're going to have sex. For fuck's sake, stop that. He gets really agitated. I don't think you want to be told what to do at all. I think you know exactly what you want to do. If you really wanted to be told what to do, you'd be wearing one of these. And he points at his collar. And I love when she says women aren't allowed and he yells, fuck off, I know. The look that she gets on her face when he like yells at her. She's just so delighted by him. And I just relate to that moment so much where a part of her is exasperated, but also this very behavior is what has made her like him. That's like drawing the affection out of her, and she's just watching him like, oh my God. And he stops and sort of like collects his thoughts. And then he says, we're going to have sex, aren't we? And she just nods. And there's this long look between the two of them. And he comes up and he opens her coat finally and sees that she's wearing lingerie and she's about to try and explain. Now, this is what I like. So he knows that she was fucking this dude last night. Like, he has to be aware based on her showing up at her dad's house, saying it was a big night last night with her makeup all mussed. And then this dude says something I think about last night when he's at the door. So I really like the fact that the priest knows that she has been sleeping with somebody else and it was very recent and she was about to sleep with them tonight and this lingerie was intended for them. All of that he is aware of, and it doesn't seem to bother him at all. I really appreciate that, because a lot of dudes would feel like indignant over the fact that she could have been coming on to them and trying to get their attention, but still be actively dating and having sex with other people. They would find that to be almost like, well, you can't like me that much if you're still out here fucking other people, which is laughable because that's just not how that shit works. But a lot of dudes would be like really weird about that. And especially him being a priest, one would sort of expect him to be a lot more fundamentalist about it in certain ways. And instead, it just doesn't faze him in any way. It's just sort of taken for granted, like, well, yeah, that's you. You know, and that is just such, I feel like any other context of them having sex for the first time would feel like maybe he didn't know her that well or know what he was getting into with her baggage a little bit. And he knows some of it, but this is a very specific thing that can foster a lot of insecurity in certain men. And I'm so pleased to see that they included in the script a way for him to find out very clearly, like, how she handles sex and relationships personally before he's in her life. And it's fine with him. You know, it's just, I just really, really liked that. She even, like I said, she tries to explain and he just tells her shh and nods at her as he continues to open the coat. And he's standing so close to her, but he doesn't make a move. She's the one that kisses him. And it's pretty good. She kisses him, pulls away, and just sort of looks at him. And then he does that thing that is so sexy, where he puts his hand up against her, like, jaw under her ear to, like, hold her face while he kisses her. What is it about that? I think it's a combo of, like, the possessiveness and there's a sort of tenderness to it. And it just feels like, you know? And the kiss, just, there's so much chemistry with these two. I swear to God, it's just out of control. Ugh. I can't handle it. I'm watching it right now and it transitions to them having sex. He's on top of her and she doesn't say anything pithy to the camera. She just immediately like pushes the camera down so that she can't be seen. And I really loved that detail too, that like every other time she has been disconnected enough from the person that she's having sex with that even if she's having an orgasm, she's still like performing. She's still looking at us winking and has the mental capacity to like stand aside from the situation and make her little commentary about it. And I love that the suggestion here is that she's so in the moment and so actually like committed to this that she doesn't have time for the fucking camera right now. This isn't the time. And I love that. I don't know, that really like hit for me, you know? So yeah, so that's this episode. I really, really liked this. I am devastated that there's only one episode left, you guys. I really am. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm so sad. I'm going to have to rewatch it with Owen, but I'm a little bit worried because the first season is sad at times, like really tough. And the second season is like so bright and hopeful that we need to get through the first season. But I don't like approaching it like we need to get through this because the first season's amazing. It's just a bit of a downer at times, you know? That's the point of it. And I just have to convince Owen to keep going. Just like, I swear it gets better. Not the show gets better, but like she gets better. You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, I can't wait for this last episode, you guys. I want to watch it right now, but I don't have time. I have things to do immediately after this. But thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me, for hanging out in the chat. Thank you to Gabriela for commissioning the episode. I hope that you guys have been enjoying the coverage. And thank you all for commissioning this. It's just been a treat. So let's see. When's the final episode? Tuesday, June 8th. Wow. Just a few days away. I'm not ready. All right, guys. I will see you then. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.